So you're thinking about investing in the East Lansing area, or you might have a child that might be going to Michigan State University and you want to have a place that they can potentially live. Well, in this video, I want to explain to you the different licensing and rental laws that are in the city of East Lansing, because once you hear some of them, you might think, yep, I definitely want to do this, or no way, this is a lot more complicated than what I thought. And if you stick around until the end, I'm going to share with you a way that some of you might be able to save on some of your property taxes, and also a way that you might not even need to make the property you're buying a rental at all. So take a moment, sit back, relax, because we're about to get into this right now. Hey everybody, Troy Seifert here with the Capital Area Real Estate Specialist in Lansing, Michigan, and in the greater Lansing area, which also includes East Lansing. And we get phone calls from people like you all the time who are looking to do this. So whether you're looking to invest or buy something in the next 6 days, 60 days, or even further down the line, like 600 days, we would love to be able to help you out. So please contact us at the information in the description below. Call us, text us, email us, even schedule a Zoom on our calendar. We would love to be able to talk with you about some of your options. And also, if you would like to continue to follow this channel to look for some updates, even coming up here, I might be in the future doing a map video of the hot investment areas in East Lansing. If you want to sign up for that update, then please like, subscribe, and ring the bell for any notifications that might come into your email so that you will be the first to know when I have new content. And we put new content on weekly on this channel. All right, so investing in East Lansing. Before I get into that, I want to take the time to first of all compliment those of you who are looking at the opportunity to invest, because that means that you are relatively good with your money. You're really good at figures, knowing what's going to potentially be best for my money, right? If you're an investor, it's all about the numbers for you, how much the rents are and taxes and insurance and how all that's going to line up to your bottom line of, is this going to be a good investment for myself or not? If you're a parent of a student, you're thinking to yourself, I don't want to have to pay the room and board rates. Why don't I just have my kid live off campus, live there with a few friends, maybe even like 3 or 4 friends, and hey, I could buy this property and we could have all of these people live there. I can make money off of them, and then when the time comes, I can go ahead and sell it, maybe make a profit off of it. If you are somebody who's thinking like that, that means that you think through financial decisions. And for that, I just want to tell you, job well done for like how you think. I feel a lot of times maybe you don't get praised on just how good you are with your money. So I did want to take the time just to be able to state that hey, job well done on thinking through this. You're a dreamer, you're thinking through this. I'm a dreamer myself, I have good ideas on things. And so there's nothing wrong with wanting to dream. But, and of course I have to quash that dream, right? There's a but in this. But East Lansing, because it's in a college town and it's in Michigan State University, they have created certain rules and restrictions that you need to abide by when looking for a rental property. And so my goal here is to be able to discuss some of those rules with you so that you can think to yourself, yeah, this might be an area that I might want to invest in, or no, actually looking to buy a house for my kid and their friends, that's probably not the way to go. So hopefully at the end of this video, you'll have some answers and you'll know where to go next. And if you are somebody, again, that's needs some more clarification, again, reach out to me at the information below, call, text, email, because we would love to be able to walk this process with you. So in the city of East Lansing, because it is a college town, what the city of East Lansing has done is they have created rules and regulations to protect some of the neighborhoods that are in East Lansing. Well, why, you might ask? Well, because they do not want the neighborhoods to be over inundated with all of these rentals and all of these students. So to protect those neighborhoods, what they have done is they have made their neighborhoods vote on allowing rentals to be in their neighborhood and allowing people to apply for a rental in their neighborhood. This is known as a rental overlay district. And so the neighborhood has voted, and if they decide we don't want any new rentals in our area, we want them to stay out, then if that's the rule, then you cannot make a house that's for sale, you cannot make it into a rental. You are forbidden to do that, okay? Some of you might say, well, who's gonna stop me? Who's gonna keep me accountable? And I just got off the phone today with the person from the city of East Lansing who's the head of it, and she said, neighbors will call you out on it because they don't wanna have rentals in that area. If maybe a student had a bad relationship with somebody, they might call the city and say, hey, they're breaking the rules, okay? So the fines are substantial if you decide to not follow the rules. And what they even do with the penalties and fines is they backdate those penalties and fines to when you purchased the house and broke the rules. So the fines can be substantial for this. All right, so what am I potentially eligible for right now for a rental if I want to be able to purchase a rental? So when a listing hits the market, it'll be one of two things. First thing is they might already have a pre-existing license. If that's the case, that is golden for you to be able to have that, because a pre-existing license has been grandfathered in, and so whatever changes the city makes on rental rules, they cannot change them as long as you continue to renew the license year after year. That's the key. You have to continue to pay the fees to renew your license year after year. So there are some places that might be licensed for 4 people, might be licensed for 6 people, might be licensed for 8 people. If that is the case, then you can rent it out to however many people are allowed, and you're good to go. So if you have a kid that has 3 friends and you get a home that is licensed for 4, you can keep it as long as you renew it. Now let's say a house is for sale and it's not in that rental overlay district where the neighborhood has voted for there to be no new rentals, but it's a house that's for sale, and you're like, hey, this isn't a rental overlay district, maybe we could apply for a license. What does that look like? So if you were to be the person that was going to purchase a property like this, what you have to understand is that what you are eligible for at the most is having 2 people starting out in that property, okay? There are 2 different types of licenses. There's a Class 1 license, and there's also a Class 3 license in the city of East Lansing. So Class 1 is for somebody who is the owner, who is living in the house, and then they have an unrelated person living with them, okay? Now, if you decide to purchase the property and you're on the title and you decide to live there, you can have just 1 roommate in your house living with you, and that is it, starting out. If you are an investor who's looking to buy a property and you want to be able to, maybe you were hoping to have 4 or 5 students live in a 3-bedroom house. If you were looking to do that, the greatest amount of people that you can have in a house or per side, like let's say it's a duplex, is 2 people. That's it. So, as you're thinking through investments, right, you gotta think to yourself, okay, if I can only have 2 people, maybe my kid has 1 friend that they can live with, and maybe it's still cheaper for me to be able to do this. I mean, maybe those are discussions that you could have. But initially, especially if it's owner occupied or non-owner occupied, the greatest amount of people that can live there are 2 people. Now, let's say you have a situation where you as a parent have a kid that's going to Michigan State, and then they have 2 brothers and sisters that are younger than them, and you're thinking, well, I'll just keep this house in the family for a long time, okay? So what you can do at that time is, the rule for the Class 1 license, where you are owner occupied, you can only have 1 other person, is that if you want to apply for the license, you have to, as the owner, have lived in that house for 18 months, okay? So for 18 months, you have to live in that house, and then you can apply for a license, which takes about 4 or 5 months. And when that happens, you can add 1 person besides yourself, like besides your kid and the other person. So you could have 3 people technically in there. but that's a process. Some of you, your kid might only be at Michigan State for another 2 years, and to apply for a license, it costs over $1,500 to get a license. So for you, you have to think through the cost of, is it worth it for me to buy this house with the way rents are, and I have to pay a $1,500 fee if my kid is only going to be here for another 2 or 3 years? Those are some questions you have to ask yourself. The other thing that you have to keep in mind is what the current rent is going for in the area, which is going to be helpful for those of you who are investors to know, hey, like let's say I find one that's licensed for 4. What's going to be a good return on my investment then, right? So if you were to buy a license for 4 property, there's one that's currently on the market on Cornell Street. So this is the other thing I want to kind of tell you in this video too, is that a majority of the data I am getting are from homes that are within what we call the quadrant. And when I do a future map video, you'll be able to see it even more clearly. But the quadrant is Abbott Road going north to Bircham, which goes east, to Hagedorn, which is the furthest east it's going to take you. And then you've got Grand River, the main drag there in downtown. So the quadrant, that is the A spot in town. That is the greatest location. And then when you're in the A spot, you have certain streets that are closer to the university and closer to the downtown, like Mack Avenue, like Charles Street. If you're in Charles Street, in one of those areas, obviously your rents are going to be higher than another area that might be further away from walking to campus, okay? So anything within that quadrant of streets is gonna be what we call an A rental, okay? When you get a little east of Hagedorn, there are some rentals that are over on the other side there. Those tend to go down in value, as well as what it costs what it costs per student. If you again go south or go closer to like where the Breslin Center is, where the Michigan State University football team plays at Spartan Stadium, or to basketball games, okay? There are some rentals there, but there's a lot of street restrictions and it doesn't go as high per student over there. Why? Because it's not close to the downtown, like where everything is kind of happening, in the restaurants and everything within walking distance, okay? So right now there is a house on Cornell, which is in the A area that I talked about initially. On Cornell, it's listed for $270,000, and the rents that they are asking for are just over $2,100 for a license for 4. Okay, and at $270,000, it still hasn't sold. Why? Because the rents are totaling a little over $2,100. If you're crunching the numbers, you take the $2,100, times it by 12, that takes you to about $25,000. Then you subtract taxes. Well, taxes in East Lansing for that type of property are probably going to be about $4,000 plus. Okay, so you subtract the taxes right there. It's $21,000. Then any other net expenses you have, insurance, any repairs you might want to do. So you might only net $18,000 a year on a property that is listed at $270,000. And so some basic math, in case you don't know this, if you're an investor, you should know this, but as a parent, maybe you don't. There's what's known as a cap rate. And a cap rate is how much, the percentage that you will make on your investment after all expenses are taken out, what your net income is, you divide it by how much you paid for the property. So when you're at $20,000, like that is roughly around like 6%. For a cap rate. And sometimes people want to get a little bit higher than that. Sometimes people are okay with like anywhere from 4 to 10%. But that's what you're looking at after all the expenses are taken out. So that house has been sitting for a little while. So that's kind of telling me, hey, the rents need to be higher or they need to lower the price. So right now in East Lansing, per license, it's going for anywhere from around 60 to, I would say, 80, 85,000 per license. And what I mean by per license is per person that can live there. So you might have a license for 2 property. And the one thing I will say is this: if you have a license for 2, those tend to go closer to the 80,000 per license. I'm seeing some of those go for around 160, 170,000 for a small, even like 3-bedroom house. If you go for, again, a license for 3, you're getting about $500 to $600 per student, depending on the location. Same thing for a license for 4. So when you put the costs in there for what you're going to get on a lease from students, you got $500, $600 per student, and you're paying per license that's $60,000 to $90,000. You're kind of seeing like, okay, if I get a four-person unit, depending on how much I get in rent, because I could get $2,400, $2,500. If I get higher in rent, then the higher that price is going to go. So it'll be closer to $300,000 just for a license for 4. There could be 3 bedrooms in there for all we know, but it depends on the amount of people that are licensed there. So again, keep that in mind as you're starting to look for a rental property. Now, I think I promised you in the beginning that I would tell you how you can potentially save on taxes, as well as a way that you might not even have to look, into doing the whole rental process. So a way that you can save on taxes is if you, as a parent, put your child on the deed or on the title, and then in the state of Michigan, if you have you're allowed to have one property where an owner is allowed to live there, and they can write off what's known as homestead for their taxes. And so that'll give you the lowest tax break. Otherwise, if you're an investor and you're not going to live there and you're just going to rent it out, you're subject to non-homestead, which is about a 30 to 35% increase on what your total taxes will be throughout the year. So that's one suggestion I would make. Another thing that you might not have to do is, again, I stated that you can place your child on the deed to live there. And then what happens is they have a roommate that lives there. If they just have one roommate there, you don't even have to go through the rental license process. You can just have your child, their friend, that's good. That's all that you would need. Again, then your child might have friends, 2 more people. Oh, can I please, mom and dad, have them live with me, please? The answer is no. You do not want the penalties for this, okay? You do not want to have to deal with the city and someone potentially reporting you. Now, some of you might be going, man, like this just sounds way too high for what I'm supposed to do for an investment. And I was hoping to maybe find some places that might be cheaper, or some places that might not be so strict on licensing. Well, my recommendation to you would be to look in the city of Lansing, like just maybe about a mile or 2 down the road is the city of Lansing that have some nice craftsman homes that you could potentially buy. You could have your child and 2 or 3 of their friends live there, and you would be fine to be able to do that. City of Lansing is not as strict as the city of Lansing when it comes to that. Again, why? Because they're trying to prevent rentals going up everywhere if they didn't have some of these rules in place, right? There's some beautiful neighborhoods in East Lansing that have historic homes, and you do not want to have to put those neighborhoods at risk. So I understand why they do it. But if you are wanting to look on the outskirts of East Lansing for investment potential, that would be what I would suggest. Now, the thing I will tell you is that it's easy for me to say it, but then when you're talking to your kid about, hey, I found this rental in Lansing, what do you think? Or, hey, I found something that's maybe a little bit further from campus, it's a little bit cheaper. How about we look into this? You know what your kid's gonna say? They're gonna say, I really want to be close to everything that's there, and I want it to be within walking distance. I know that that's probably what you might face. And if that's the case, if your kid only wants to be close to all the things that Michigan State has to offer, then your answer for you might be like, okay, well then you're gonna have to rent somewhere else, and that's our decision we're gonna have to make, and we're not gonna buy a property. But if they're open to other areas, there are affordable things that you can look into as an investor or as a parent for your child to be able to live at, and it might end up working out better for you in the end. You have a better cap rate, better investment. So that's just my 2 cents there. Again, I appreciate you coming out to the channel here, and if you could, again, please like, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications for anything in the future that might come up. And like I said, down the line here, I do want to have a map video so you can kind of see what East Lansing, like the different streets are there, what the good locations are as well, so that if you're really thinking about doing this, you can have a clear understanding of what some of the hotspots are and what might be a good way for you to invest, or what might not be such a great idea to do. And again, my team is here to help you if you have any other questions on rules or any laws, contact me at the information below. And thanks. I hope you make it a great day. And again, thanks for tuning in.